So next up is someone who will give an introduction into the innovation part of this conference. And his talk will be moderated by Natasa, so please welcome Natasa to the stage.
Okay, so we now have Paul Papadimitriou, even if he says there is no perfect way to pronounce his surname. He's going to speak about innovation, and he's actually an architect of strategy, whatever that means. So I asked him a little bit about it. He's actually a marketing expert, and he works for big companies trying to make their strategies really the best ones. So, Paul, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, hi there, guys. Whatever that means, innovation, whatever that means. Hi, hello, how are you? I need a minute to start. Okay, so I'll put a timer. Sorry, I'm a Swiss. You're Papadimitriou. Can you say my name right? Usually in Eastern Europe, you're pretty good. Can you say it? Yeah, it's pretty good actually, right? So unlike what my name says, so of course it's Greek, right? But actually I'm Swiss, but also Greek. So it's complicated. I was born in Switzerland. My father is Greek, and my mother was from Finland, which is very cool because as a Greek, I don't pay the taxes. As a Swiss, I'm hiding the money. And as a Finn, because everybody knows Santa Claus lives in Finland, so as a Finn, I'm financing with the money I just hid in financing Christmas. So you can thank me for Christmas. You'll understand what I do. I only have 20 minutes, so I'll go very fast. You live in a very small country, guys. I didn't realize that. This is Shinjuku Station. This was my station in Tokyo when I was living there. This station sees between 3 and 4 million passengers a day. So you have your country, 6 times your country every day in that single station. And this is where I started being in love with innovation. I had startups back before everything went bust in 2000. And I fell back in love with innovation and with startups at that moment in time. And I love the station because it's so complex. It went so fast. It was, imagine, 4 million people a day in a single station. And this represents the world we live in. It's extremely complex. It goes extremely fast. And this is what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk about technology, obviously, because it's sexy, because it's fun. Then I'm going to talk about people, and then I'm going to talk about the models. Technology. When people hear about technology, nowadays they only talk about what they have in their pocket. No, guys, I'm talking about your phone. Technology has always been with us. The most important bit was here. In 1947, we invented the transistor. The transistor was the first time we put our brain, we started giving out to something else, here a computer. That's the day that everything changes. We used to be the computer. We used to actually make the calculations ourselves. And in 1947, that changed. And you see, that was going faster already. But then what happened? Every single decade, you had a new type of technology that appeared. It was the mainframe computers. Basically, your phone was this entire room. And it went faster and faster and faster. And we have now between 10 and 40 billion devices will be connected to the internet by 2020. This is going faster and faster and faster. If this would actually go faster, actually. Another way to look at how it goes is to see how long it took for technology to be adopted. In the US, it took a hell lot of time for electricity to be adopted. More than 50 years to get adopted by a quarter of Americans. It took the smartphone only 4 years to get adopted by a quarter of Americans. Same story in the world. It took for the telephone almost 70 years to be adopted by 100 million people on the planet. It took Candy Crush 1 year. It goes faster, faster, and faster. Another way to look at it is this. All these devices used to exist, they are now replaced by a single one device. That's the same thing. It goes faster, everything goes faster, goes smaller, and gets integrated. All these devices, some of you might have known them because you're old enough, are now in your pocket. But another way to understand this is this. Do you know, guys, I'm talking to males, what this is? You know, you put food in this and it heats up. Yeah, that's called an oven. How often do you go in your kitchen, look at your oven and say, wow, an amazing piece of technology. You don't. And this is exactly what's going to happen with what your technology you're using today. You think it's great. You think the phone is amazing. You're going to forget about it because technology falls into the background. There's only 2 times a year when I look at this and I cook. It's because I need to figure out how to change the fucking clock on it. These are only 2 times I care about this piece of technology. The same thing will happen with all these devices that you are so enamored with nowadays. Oh, I'm getting a coffee. Wow, thank you so much. How did you know? Stelly. Thank you, Stelly. I didn't have my coffee this morning, although Ramon was very good at doing that. So what we show this is that technology falls into the background. It shows that it becomes not only faster, but it becomes cheaper, 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 and cheaper. The same device you have in your pocket has more processing power than the entire program that allowed us to go to the moon, and more power than the entire light force in 1945. You have that in your pocket, and you obviously watch YouTube videos with it instead of winning a war. So that's the first driver of technology, deflation. Processing power goes faster, and it allows us to create it. This is why you hear, whether you read whichever newspaper you hear about robots, you hear about artificial intelligence, it's because of this. This is the first driver of technology. The second driver of technology, we invented the wheel. But then the wheel was just the foundation, and then we invented this as a bike, for instance. Technology is layered on top of each other. When you hear nobody has tried this phone, it's the Amazon phone. The Amazon phone is a phone that, whether or not it was a success is not the point. You can actually take a picture of everything and buy everything. But what it shows that this phone is actually an addition of other innovations that came before it. So that's the second driver of technology today. The second driver of technology today is platforms. You build up on other people's platforms all the time, and that makes velocity and spread goes even faster. And the third driver of technology, well, you all know it because you're all on Facebook, these are the networks, if that thing would actually go faster. The networks. The networks mean that we all are becoming nodes on a network. We all the people here in this room, the 5 billion people that are connected, it's soon the 7-9 billion people on this planet. We are all becoming a node on a big network. And to that, you had all the devices I talked about earlier. This is the first time in history that we are all connected this way. We are entering an era of augmented globalization. 10, 15 years ago, there was a book called The World is Flat. The world is actually extremely flatter. We're going on an extreme efficiency type of technology. The problem with technology, though, is that we keep, like I said, it's sexy. So you talk about technology all the time, but you forget that at the end of the day, we remain people. After living in Tokyo, I moved to the Philippines. This is a shot from Manila. And I was reminded, because it's an emerging market, that, there's technology, but there's people. And we always have to come back to people and what people do with technology. What are they actually leveraging technology for? This is not me. I wish I was that well built, but this is what people do with technology. They actually use it. And what do you use it for? These are numbers of a single year. You don't care about the numbers, but in a single year, there were 15 million new books that were created. There were 52 million new websites created. And then I'm going to go on, there's like shit tons of hours on YouTube, and Facebook likes, and tweets, and photos. Actually, I think I read it the other day. This year, there will be 1 trillion photos uploaded on the internet, and Google searches. And the last one, which is, of course, sex, and this is the size of my inbox. I don't know how to read that number because it's way too high. This is what we do with technology. This is what actually matters. It doesn't matter that it's sexy. Stop reading TechCrunch every single minute. It doesn't matter. With all the companies I work with, it all boils down back to people. What do people do? They talk to each other, they communicate, they want to transact, they want to buy stuff, they want to share, they want to like, they want to love each other. This is what we do, and this is why technology exists, because we invent technology. Technology doesn't make us do things. We make technology do things. This is the important bit. Human touch always comes first. This is, for those who are marketers, this is how they talk about people. oh, there's this Generation Y, Generation X, and Generation Z. And the Y, now the new term for the X is millennials. Well, first of all, it's bullshit. And second of all, the guy who invented that thing didn't figure out that we're going to run out of letters now because we don't know how to call the next one. It's bullshit. First of all, it's very Western, even very American. Do not fall into that trap. People were not born suddenly in 1980 and do something. I love the video that Ramon showed you, but you know what? These type of behaviors now are all across the board. I offered an iPad to my dad. He's 83 years old. At 83, he acts like a freaking baby. Ramon just showed you. This doesn't work. You know why marketers do this mistake? It's because of this. This was written 2,000 years ago. Our youth now love luxury. They have bad manners, content for authority. They show disrespect for basically being young. You don't care about your parents, and you don't want to shout, and you don't want to stay at home, and you want to go have fun and party. This is being young, and this is the problem with marketers, is that they think that, oh, because they have a smartphone, this is what they do. No, this is what they do because it's just young. That's it. And this has never actually changed. So this is not how you should look at people. What you should look at people is at how aware we become. Now we can be aware of our surroundings, our neighborhood, our friends, our city, our planet, our country, everything. We are aware. We have all the information available to us to make all these connections, to understand the planet we live in. This is also the first time in history that it has ever happened. This is the important bit. This is what technology allows us to do. The fact that it's cheap, the fact that it goes fast, allows us to do that. And you know what it does? It redefines who we are. It redefines our identity. 3 ways how it redefines ourselves. First, when I was a kid in the classroom, I was bullied because the interests I had were not the interests of my classmates. That's all right. Look at me, I'm fine. But the thing is, nowadays, the same thing would have happened. I would have found someone somewhere on this planet having the same interests as me. And I would have validated what I believe in. The same might have happened to you. The same will happen to your kids. So this means that we certainly can be tribal. We can find people that are like-minded wherever, no matter where they are. First. Second one, nomadic. We can travel cheaply. Of course, you still want to maybe live in Montenegro. Don't follow me with those places. But the important bit is you can do it. You can find those like-minded people and start traveling around the world. You can be nomadic. That's the second how people more and more are. Tribal, nomadic, and the third one, singular. Singular means simply you can decide whoever you want to be. Who's a parent here? Oh shit, not that many actually. Yeah, I'm old and I don't have kids, so don't follow my example. But you know what? As a parent, or if you're a kid, what do your parents tell you? You can be whoever you want to be. Well, you know what? That's exactly what's happening. People are becoming whoever they want to become. You don't have to follow rules anymore the way you used to follow rules anymore. And this is what technology has allowed us to do. What that creates something. We don't trust institutions anymore. Because if you start believing into an horizontal type of power, when you actually find tribes, you don't want to trust in your government. You don't trust institutions anymore. This is why we see crises all the time. You don't trust governments anymore. You don't trust the big institutions. Because you know what? For our parents, they were supposed to give you a job to fix the economy. It doesn't work anymore. Because it's too hard, too complex to manage for them. So you don't trust institutions. You want to take ownership of the problems. This is why you create startups. Same thing happens at work. These big organizations, these big corporations we were all wanted to work for at some point back in time, they're too big to manage. They're too big to manage. They cannot fight complexity. And because they cannot fight complexity, more and more people are trying to take ownership of the issues. Same thing happens here. Again, horizontal power. You can find people like-minded, create startups, create enterprise, create ideas. You don't need to rely on big organizations. Sorry for those guys who work in the ones that are our sponsors. Thank you very much for inviting me. I work with some of you guys. Actually, I work with Microsoft. But these companies are becoming very quickly irrelevant in terms of their structure. It's never been as easy to put an idea to life. not only we don't trust the big organizations, we don't trust the government, but you can actually take ownership and make something. You can create something yourself. You don't need to rely on big institutions anymore. The creation process used to start with big institutions. It doesn't have to anymore at all. That's the third bit. It doesn't have to. You can create, I know that most people will say here, oh, yeah, but it's hard to find money. No, it's actually not hard to find money. You can find money very easily in this world. Trust me. You can find money very easily. I work in mostly emerging countries. I don't work in the Silicon Valley, although I go to visit, obviously. I work in emerging countries. I work in countries like, Lebanon. Lebanon is fucking bombed, and they have startups. I found startups in Afghanistan. You don't need to have big organizations backing you up, but you will always find the money provided you have the great IT. So if my microphone is being still cuts out. So that's and the last one is obviously we're all becoming empowered. You can do that yourself. You can rely on your own if you want. I live that life. My life is actually I do everything by myself. I outsource a lot of stuff. But I'm the master of my own destiny for the past 10 years, and I don't rely on anyone. And that actually works because technology allows me to do it. Because we invented all these tools to be able to do it. You just have to dare using them and improve it. Everything is constantly at our fingertips. Every single thing is constantly at your fingertips. That's something that is changing the way we behave. It's changing the way we believe. So what do we do with that? Technology, people, and models. I'm going to go to models, talk a little bit about innovation and disruption. Because basically, what we have here is innovation is simply that. Innovation is simply having a new set of technologies that meet people. That's all there is. And don't go into that belief that supposedly innovation only happens in startups. It's bullshit. I meet companies that create cure for cancer, for Christ's sakes. They're very massive organizations, so don't believe in that. Innovation happens everywhere, not only in small companies. That's just all there is. And if I translate that, it's the promise of extreme efficiency on one side because you have technology, and the promise of empowerment for the people. That's what currently is technology. The problem is, it's the technology, what I want to talk about. It's disruption, what actually means disruption. And not what you read in the PR of a lot of startups that just say, oh, we are disruptive. That's not exactly what happens. Disruption is a specific part of innovation. You have to understand the human experience if you want to disrupt. That's my take on it, if you want to disrupt anything. You have to understand why we do the things we do. You heard Ramon talking about selling to your customer. You'll hear Steli later on also talking about customers. You need to understand your human experience in order to understand both innovation and disruption. The human experience journey, this is what you want to do. You want to understand every single part of the human experience and say, okay, what can I solve of that little part of the journey? This is how most startups were started. Willingly or not, consciously or not, but this is always how it starts. You break down the journey into pain points that you can solve. You don't solve the big picture. Don't look at me as you're trying to talk about the big picture. You solve a little bit of the journey. And technology allows you to do it because for a long time it was impossible to tackle these points because technology was too expensive or too massive. Now you can actually touch them. This is how you solve it. It's touching a little bit of that journey. Think about your experience. Think about what you go through every day. A few rules, the pain points, how you solve them. First, you unbundle everything. That's what I said. You can actually cut the journey into minimal bits, which were impossible to solve before. Everything becomes unbundled. First rule. Second rule, good enough is a new quality. My grandmother used to say that, if you want quality, you have to pay the price. It's not true anymore. It's so cheap that it's good enough means that you can actually, good enough is the new quality. People do not need the perfection, they need good enough. So if you can solve a pain point, a little pain point, break it down, and it's good enough the way you solve it, this is how you're going to disrupt. Because the big companies still are in the mindset of, let's do everything that we can. No, you do 80%, you even do sometimes 60% that is good enough for the people. You don't need to solve the entire perfection in a perfection way. Then everything is a remix. I'm talking here to startups. It's okay to copy. It's okay to copy. Stop listening to those who tell you that it's not okay to copy. It's okay to copy. At the end of the day, it's how you do it that will matter. It's not what you've done. All we do is copying as human beings. As I said earlier, innovation is layered. Every time you have a new technology, it's layered on something else. We always are standing on the shoulders of giants. It's absolutely okay to copy. And this is also, it's execution that matters and not at all the fact that you're copying something. And we can have a debate later on over a beer if you don't agree with me. And then, of course, rely on the fact that everything is always on demand. This is a 24/7 world that actually never, ever stops. Everything, and that will never change. Everything is always on demand. So think about the journey, not only because you can actually solve that point, but think that that point is repeated a billion times over a single day. These are the rules of, for me, disruption. This is how you try to solve disruption. Doesn't mean that you will be disruptive, because I'm coming to that in a minute. I know I'm almost running out of time, but I'll be there. This is how you solve it. Then, the eras of disruption. We're going to go very far, but basically, for those who are talking about social media, that you are still here and consuming. We're in the era of, the Web 2.0, whatever you want to call it. We're moving past this. We're in an era of sharing, shaping, funding. This is where we are pretty much. But we're going into more ownership, because as technology becomes cheaper, as you can solve the things yourself, more and more you can actually have empowerment, you actually own the entire process of production. And this is a big issue, by the way, for big companies that rely on the old model, because they're losing grip on you, because you can start creating stuff. The first industries that were touched were obviously the content industry. Now we use about user-generated content, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing will happen in every single industry. The production is coming back because of the efficiency that we're getting out of technology. The production is coming to you, and I see that every day with the clients I'm working. Oops, sorry for that. Just an example, very quickly. Telephone industry. I used to work in the telephone industry back in the 90s. That was my startup, actually. The Trojan horse model. This is how disruption happens. Disruption happens because you're a big company and you're making a shitload of money on something and you just don't pay attention because it's not your core business. International calls was not the core business of most of the telcos, so telecom companies, telcos, back in the 90s. So people started selling, these cards. You can go buy at a kiosk and have very cheap international calls. And these companies didn't care at all. They say, oh, whatever. We're making already so much money. And people, that's a good enough principle. They think people will still prefer to just use their phone in their house instead of going to a kiosk, buy a calling card, come back home, because that was complex. But that's a good enough principle. 80%. I would go to a kiosk, I would buy this calling card, and slowly and slowly and slowly, they're starting eating that market. The same thing happened for texting. Not going to go over it, but exactly the same thing. What's the result? The result is that we have Skype and we have WhatsApp. And that's how disruption happens, because it happens on the fringe, not on the core model. This is how disruption always happens. You start, and now basically when I talk to companies, telco companies, they're basically telling me they're fucked, because they didn't pay attention, it's too late. The same thing will happen in the banking industry. Just take one example. The banking industry is the same thing. International payments, that's where it starts. It's already started. All these companies doing. You can actually transfer money. I used to live in the Philippines. I told you, you can transfer money via Gmail, via Facebook Messenger. It's already starting. The same process is starting from in finance. The same process is starting for also the payment processing, obviously. PayPal and others. Same thing. It's not the core business. They didn't see it coming. It's eating into their core business now. This is how disruption happens. One example, just very quickly, there was a guy that made a flash crash. He basically made the commodity market, trading market crash 2 years ago. The guy actually turned out to be a guy living in a basement near to Heathrow Airport. The point is not here to say what he did was good or not. Don't worry, I'll be mindful of time. The point was not what he did was right or wrong, because he was arrested by the police by crashing the markets. The point is, he was a single guy with stock software in a basement near an airport in London, and he was able to crash the markets. That's for me the important bit. A single person with no idea of coding, but understanding the market, was able to crash the market by himself. And this is exactly what I'm trying to tell you before. Because of the access to technology and because of the will to do whatever you want yourself, you can do it. In that case, maybe it was a wrong way of doing it, but you can. Big banks didn't see it coming, and now the market can be crushed by a single person with no even experience in coding, stock software. This is the important bit. I have many other examples like that, but that freaks out the company I work with because like, shit, if a single guy can disrupt the finance industry. You remember when WhatsApp was bought by Facebook, there were 35 people. 35 people disrupted the entire telco industry that has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees around the world. 35 people. This is what freaks out, and this is disruption. 30 people changing an industry. This is actually disruption. This is not innovation. I know, don't worry, give me 2 more minutes. The forthcoming disruptions, consumer, it's already there. Enterprise, it's kind of there, not fully, so banking, for instance. So finance is starting. Education, it's barely starting, but it will. Healthcare, barely starting, but it will be very big as well. And governance, everything that has to do with policy, I think for me is one of the biggest things to have happen. I know you can, for instance, I can vote online. It's the first thing you've heard about the e-residency in the Baltics. This is very, very early, but these are for me the biggest disruptions upcoming: governance, healthcare, education, and finance. These are the ones. And the security as well, but we can talk about it over a beer again later. Every single thing will be maximized. So every single industry will see some kind of disruption, and there's nothing that will be safe. I used to be a lobbyist, so I used to be paid to go to governments to try to make the law protecting the old guys. That was my job for a while. So I know how it works. You know what? It won't be enough. No matter big companies, how much money they throw at the problem, it won't save them. No regulation will save them. No loyalty from consumer will save them because technology goes too fast and the will of the people goes too high. Everything will be touched within the next 10 to 15 years. And it's and this is, all right, 2 more slides and I'll give you. This is, for me, the most disruptive era that we're living in, not because of technology, not because all I've said, but because of these numbers that you can barely see here. We'll have 2.5 billion people entering the emerging into the middle class. 2.5 billion new middle class people in the world, including 1 billion women entering the workforce. And that's, for me, the most disruptive bit of it. Already in Western markets, 80% of the purchasing decisions are made by women. 1 billion women will enter the workforce in the next 10 years. Imagine how that will change the models for so many companies that are not ready for that. And then, if you go on the rich side of it, $17 trillion will be shifting hands within the next 20 years. Why? Because the families that make a lot of money after the war until now are basically simply giving the money to their kids. That's $17 trillion that will exchange money in the next 20 years. 17 trillion of which will go to people that are 20, that are not ready to work or to even cater as being customers of all type companies. That is changing the dynamic of this planet extremely quickly. Other trends don't have time, but we'll go there. So basically, it's a game of inches. Have you seen the movie Any Given Sunday? If you've not seen it, I'm going to send you the video of Al Pacino when he does that freaking awesome speech. It's a game of inch. You don't have that much play there, but you can win very easily by understanding these trends and moving very, very swiftly. Better if you have a team around you. It's always being inches. You all have a shot at disruption. It's possible, even from Montenegro. Don't believe those who said you cannot. It can't happen anywhere. And last but not least, I'm Greek, so I can say that. When we talk about heroes nowadays, people think that heroes are like, Transformers or whatever movies you look. In Greek mythology, hero was a woman, and she was holding a light. She was showing the way. So whoever you want to have as a hero, Elon Musk, maybe you want it. You can come on stage, by the way, because I'm almost finished. Whoever, but be heroes. We have all these choices, infinite choice in front of us. Your kids will have even more choices of careers, of what they can do, as what they can buy at every single moment of their lives. You know what they need? You know what all of us we need? We need heroes. We need some people that show us the light, tell us where to go. This is what we need. Curators, heroes. So if you want to win today in this world, you have to be a hero for someone. And on that, thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for the coffee, by the way.
Too late.
Good, please. Yeah, sorry, I went over
I had so many questions, but I didn't want to interrupt you. It was really a great presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have one big question.
Elon Musk or Steve Jobs? No, sorry.
No.
We had a debate about that last night.
We always speak about individuals disrupting the world. How
Yes.
can big companies disrupt or innovate? Only by hiring a proper individuals?
No, I don't think so. I think because the individuals... Look at Stelly. Do you work in a big company, Stelly? No. You will never work in a big company. So basically what will happen is that big companies will always hire the second grade, no matter what. There's no way, with all the power we have, that I will ever go back to a big company. And that will only increase over time. So the only solution for big companies is to actually revisit their own model, is to adapt their own model. There's no proper solution yet, but I think is the way companies will be formed, or even like thought, won't be the way we see companies. Basically, I think companies will become networks, and that might be a solution. So instead of, we could be a network. All our guys here, let's say, you plus, 10 of us could have a company. We'll just be a network. We're already seeing that, and I think that's how it will be solved.
How long do you think we need to get to there? I completely agree with you.
How long? No, I think it depends on the markets. I think legacy, again, the problem we have nowadays is that technology goes extremely fast, but human behavior doesn't, it will never. So at some point what will happen is that I believe most of the companies that we know today will disappear within the next 20 years, so 25, 30 years, and new ones will just emerge. A few of them, I believe that out of the technology companies, because that's the ones you like, I think one of the only ones that will survive will be Google, because they are the only ones that are ready to disrupt themselves, not the others. So I don't think that we'll see, I think depending on the countries, it will go between 20 to 40 years to happen.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody has any questions?
Otherwise, I'm here until tomorrow. You can see me tonight or later on over coffee.
Questions?
Don't worry, my kind of speeches is always the same thing. People usually have questions a week after. So you can find me online, Papadimitriou. You just Google that. That's a good thing about my name is that I'm always the first one on Google search. So you find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever, just connect and it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.